All right, let's get cracking. Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am the Profane Bookworm. I'm new to Booktube. This is going to be my first video. I'm doing the newbie book tag. I'm going to be answering a couple of questions just to give you guys a feel for what I hope to accomplish with this channel. Short introduction, my name's Katie. I've loved reading all of my entire life, basically. I've always had a lot of strong opinions about the things that I read, but I tend to love everything that I read. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. So that's really about all you guys need to know, and I'll answer the rest in the questions. Question number 1, why did you start this channel? Long story short, I love reading so much that I just want to share my love of reading with all of you. I also want to present a challenge to you. I love everything that I read so much that at the time that I'm recording this video, I have, to date, exactly one book on my Goodreads that has 1 star. The only reason that it has a 1 star is because it is the only book I have ever read in my entire life that I hated. I hated reading it so incredibly much. Like, I had almost nothing good to say about the book. I left a scathing review on it, the first I have ever done, and I still feel guilty about it. I do have a few that got like 2 stars, but in my book, 2 stars is still okay. I have my complaints about them, but like, they're not really objectively bad. I want to start this channel so that you guys can give me book recommendations on things that you think that I will hate, because I worry sometimes that I'm too lenient on my ratings, but I have a reason and I have a method for my madness, so I need you to send me all of your suggestions on the worst books that you've ever read. I'll talk about rules and stuff for that later. Question number 2, what are some fun and unique things that I can bring to Booktube? Because I have a tendency to love so many books from so many different genres, my plan is to maybe broaden my horizons a little bit more because I tend to stick to the same genres over and over again. But what I plan to bring to Booktube is that I want to have recommendations for every reader, whether they're, you know, kids or teens or adults, men, women, any target demographic. I want to be able to encourage people to read more. And that's ultimately my goal. I just want more people to read. And there's a book for everyone. Question number 3, what am I most excited about for my new channel? I'm just excited to be able to write thorough, in-depth reviews for some of my favorite series and to recommend books to people and get people talking about different books for different reasons, generate discourse, you know, all that good stuff. Question number 4, why do I love reading? Or why do I love reading? A common answer is that people really enjoy reading for like escapism or something like that. While mine is a little bit of escapism, it's more that I love reading because it's a journey, right? I like reading because I enjoy experiencing other people's stories, whether they are fictional or not. I do read some nonfiction, but I am more of a fiction reader. Ultimately, that's my favorite part, is just experiencing something new or having my emotions ripped apart by a particularly good author that writes a character that I find incredibly compelling. There's a lot of reasons to read, and my main one is just I like to feel things. Question number 5, which book or series got me into reading in the first place? So I started reading whenever I was young. My very first children's book that I remember reading by myself was The 3 Billy Goats Gruff. I loved the illustrations. It was like my favorite part about bedtime. I read that story over and over and over. I couldn't stop reading it. It was just so captivating to me as a kid. And even now, it's still a really cute story and it's very nostalgic. as for like the first book that really got me into reading all kinds of books was A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I read A Wizard of Earthsea whenever I was in elementary school. I believe I was in 3rd grade. No, I was in 2nd grade when I read A Wizard of Earthsea. And I just remember being absolutely blown away. It was my first foray into fantasy, and it was the best experience of my childhood. Like, it opened so many doors, and it really inspired my love for reading. I think I'm gonna do an in-depth review of A Wizard of Earthsea eventually. I reread it all the time. I'll definitely be doing a review on it at some point. Another like series that I particularly enjoyed as a kid was actually Hank the Cowdog. It was a really cute children's series, and it was full of like comedic gold. Oh, and a book that inspired my love for science fiction was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I don't know if I'm actually pronouncing her last name right, but that was also a really good series. That one saw an adaptation recently by Disney. I watched the adaptation, and I gotta say, I didn't particularly care for it. It wasn't super good. The acting in it was fine, but like, it didn't do justice to the book, in my opinion. So if you saw the adaptation, I definitely recommend reading the book. It's part of a series. The second book in the series was actually my favorite. It's A Wind in the Door, and it is really good. Question number 6 is, what questions would I ask my favorite booktubers? I watch a few booktubers here and there, but mostly I really only watch Read with Cindy and Daniel Green. I watch Read with Cindy because I enjoy the content that she makes. She's hilarious. There is some overlap between the books that we read, but we often disagree on books. And she tends to not like things that I actually enjoy reading, but it's okay because it's subjective. If I could ask Read with Cindy one question, I would just ask her, how is she such a fucking queen, like, all the time? She's an amazing booktuber, she's an amazing person. Based on her social interactions and stuff like that, she's an amazing person, and, yeah, I would just ask her how she could be so phenomenal and still deal with herself. As for Daniel Green, he's my favorite science fiction and fantasy reviewer. We share some similar opinions, but we still disagree on a lot, but it's okay. The only thing that I would ask him is how he dealt with his anxiety, and if he experienced a lot of anxiety whenever he first started out filming, and how he coped with that and got over it enough to where he could handle doing this like for a full-time job. Because this is my first video, and I know I'm anxious as hell, but hopefully I'm doing a good job. Like, maybe. Question number 7 is just, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? Really for me, it's just finding a dedicated schedule, because I work and I do a lot of other things in the majority of my time. This is just gonna be like a thing to do in the spare time that I have, and just for fun. So the challenge that I'll have the most trouble with is just consistent schedule, finding the time to record, and just finding a way to express my thoughts and opinions in a cohesive way, and that makes sense, that keeps everyone engaged, and just enough that I have stuff to talk about. The 8th, 9th, and 10th questions are all kind of like related, so I'm just gonna like do them all together. It was, when did I start reading? Where do I like to read? And what kind of books do I like to read? I already basically answered these questions, but like, just to go back over it, I started reading when I was like 4 or 5 years old, like as soon as I could pick up a book and hold it myself. Like as soon as I knew how to read, I was reading. I read everywhere, so like I read ebooks, I read physical books, I listen to audiobooks, so there is no place that I don't read. The majority of my time reading is probably spent just at a desk while I'm working throughout my day. I like to listen to audiobooks when I'm driving somewhere. I listen to audiobooks. I would prefer to listen to audiobooks over music most of the time. But yeah, I read basically anywhere that I can. And then for like the kinds of books that I read, I will read almost anything, which kind of ties into why I wanted to start this Booktube channel. So my preferred genres are science fiction and fantasy. It's my most read genre, but I'm still really behind on a lot of things that I wanted to get caught up on, like namely A Game of Thrones and a few other big name fantasy titles. I mostly read science fiction and fantasy, but I also really enjoy YA contemporary. I'm not really one for romance strictly as a genre, but I still enjoy it and I will read it. I just don't normally go out of my way. I like LGBT romances and stuff like that, contemporary novels. I find them to be pretty enjoyable. I don't like to read crime fiction super much. It's just not really my thing. I like suspense thrillers. One of my favorite authors in that genre department is Dean Koontz. I actually prefer Dean Koontz over Stephen King. I do like horror. I like nonfiction. I like autobiographies, memoirs, etc., etc. You name it, I've probably read something in that genre. If you have more recommendations for me in other genres, I will gladly take them. For this year, for 2021, I plan to read a lot more by BIPOC authors, more women, just, you know, I just really want to diversify my reading as much as possible. I still have a lot of science fiction and fantasy on my list for 2021, but I'll make a separate video about what I plan on reading this year. I will leave you guys off with my challenge, alright? So, I'm not gonna name the book that is my 1 star on Goodreads. I'll talk about that one later. I'll probably make an entire video about that one. But I want you guys to go into the comments section and leave me your recommendations for books that preferably you have read, that you hated for one reason or another, and I will pick 1 or 2 for the month and try and include them in my reading schedule so that I can give my thoughts and opinions on them, and we can see, like, that's my challenge. I want you guys to give me recommendations to see if I can find more stuff to fill out my 1 star. The only thing is that you can't send me fan fiction. I'm not a fan of disparaging other people's works for fan fiction. That's a cheap shot, and honestly, that's just mean. I'm not going to go out of my way to heavily criticize somebody's work when they most likely did not have a professional editor, they didn't have any professional training, or have anyone even like look over their stuff afterwards. And fan fiction is fine because people post what they want to, they write it with their hearts, and they do it because they're passionate about it, and it's just something that they really wanted to do. I'm not going to put someone down for that. Erotica is actually fair game. If you want to send me erotica recommendations, you can, because I don't like them exactly. I don't go out of my way to read them, but I don't have any erotica listed on my 1 stars, so who knows? Maybe you'll find one that I just absolutely hate with every fiber of my being. Avoid crime fiction if you can, but it's not off the table necessarily. Just because, like, I don't enjoy reading a certain genre that much doesn't mean that it's forbidden. So send me your recommendations, leave them in the comments, like and subscribe if you are looking forward to what I'm going to be doing. If you have any book recommendations that you loved, absolutely feel free to drop them in my comments as well. I'll be making a video shortly about what I'm going to be reading in 2021. I've got a few favorites that I read in 2020 that I plan on doing some in-depth reviews on. These will include books like The Poppy War by R.F. Kong and The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Maybe even cover some Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, but we'll see if I have time for that. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I look forward to trying to build something with you guys, and I hope you guys have a great day.